Linkin with Robbie. So dude hit me in my DM, right? And I'm just like, all you niggas freak out, and that's just all it is. First off, girl, fuck him. And you are now listening to Linkin with Robbie. Okay, so boom. Days 20 through day 23 of this trial have been rather interesting, one might say. Of course, Jane Doe was still going for the first half of the week, and they finally concluded her testimony with a big bomb, which the prosecution normally does. But the defense did it this time because the defense decided to bring up, which I think was a smart move on their behalf. They brought up text messages where they were able to see and confirm with the Jane Doe that she had had a freak off with another celebrity, a rap icon, and their wife. I'll let you figure that one out. I might hint at it later in the episode. But yeah, that she had a freak off with them and Diddy was present. But this wasn't a freak off that... Wait, you know what? Let me correct myself. This isn't the one that Diddy was present for. I think that's the catch of it. She had a freak off with another rapper and icon and their wife. And this wasn't a freak off that Diddy had set up. This wasn't a freak off that Diddy had forced to happen. So what the defense is bringing up, by bringing that up, even though it's very salacious and it brings up the whole gossipy of it all, everyone wants to know who is the rap icon, who is the wife, but it's very kind of obvious based off of current events, who that is. So, of course, that brings up that aspect, but also it makes the point that it's like the Jane Doe enjoyed having these freak offs, Diddy or no Diddy. And I can't say that it's a smart move because, yeah, that's what it is. What I've gathered from her, a lot of her testimonies is that she didn't necessarily want to do them. She was trying to please Diddy, but she also enjoyed them at the same time. She didn't hate them. You know what I mean? She didn't despise doing them. She had a choice, many options to not do them. It's a lot of things that aren't like my words. It's a lot of situations that are not like with Cassie, where Cassie was kind of obviously forced to do it. She could not leave. She had to keep getting dragged back. She had to keep being present and being brought around. But when it came down to Jane Doe, there was a lot of opportunities for her to go. And instead of her just leaving, she just kept trying to win him over with doing them, and I guess you could look at it as coercion, especially with him paying her bills and paying her rent. But a lot of times she was so more focused on not so much of you're doing this to me, but more of why are you taking your Miami places? Why are you doing this? So a lot of times she was being painted as somebody jealous with the defense testimony. And it makes sense. They had a lot of evidence to back that up. Again, this isn't like a Cassie situation. It was very different because this relationship from the beginning to end, based on the evidence presented by the prosecution and the defense, it was just transactional. And you can even tell by her testimony, she's not testifying against Diddy. She's just doing it because she has to. And she's just being honest. So even though it may not make her look all that great, it just paints a picture of what's going on with Diddy. But at the same time, I love how the defense still, to this day, I've repeated this multiple times, they are not denying all the stuff where all the real evidence is at. The only thing they're trying to focus on is the sex trafficking and coercion. They're focusing on that. They're trying to focus on the RICO of it all, but they're ignoring all the drug trafficking. They're ignoring the escorting and, prostitution, that being illegal. They're ignoring all that. They're not trying to focus on that. They don't even want to talk about that. They don't want to argue about that. They don't want to do none of that. They want to ignore that completely. And if they could, they would. They seriously would be able to just ignore it. And I'm hoping the jury is aware enough to remember that about this whole situation. Like, okay, yeah, I do see he may or may not have done that, but he definitely did these other things, because they're not even denying that. There's too much evidence against it. The evidence is too strong, so they can't argue that because what would they say? The defense has nothing to say. So in that whole atmosphere of things, in the midst of that, 50 Cent is always always trolling. 50 Cent was all on Instagram, and he posted a freak off video with the idea in AI version of Family Matters. Oh my God. It's a recognition this day and age. That. He redid it to mimic a freak off, and it's insanity. 50 Cent needs help, but I'm not gonna say who's he tied to in this case, but a certain Jane Doe may be relative. But needless to say, outside of Jane Doe, because I'm so glad they finally got her off the stand, because they ripped her to shreds. I honestly feel like they ripped her to shreds. But every time, the people I love that they get up there are the people that was the agents, the staff people. That's who I like to hear from, because the defense don't be having that much arguments against them. All they do is focus on the timing and discrediting things, like trying to find details that they can discredit. Like they had an agent up there who wasn't the one who necessarily did the pictures of the search, but they was involved with the raids at the house. So the prosecution basically asked them a lot of questions to find out what was at the house, what was located there, the guns, the drugs, the lube, the baby oil, the Vaseline in the nightstand, the things that they found in the home. They basically asked that agent those questions to kind of paint that picture. Now, what's funny, what is hilarious about it, was the defense just came on there and basically, which I kind of want to say, again, I feel like the prosecution may have dropped the ball on that, but maybe it's not that relevant, that the defense brought up, you're not the guy that actually did any of this. You're not the guy that did the search. You don't even know anything, because they asked so many questions and the dude didn't know. And it was so fucked up that he even got put up there into that position. But apparently the defense tried to get him not to be able to testify, because they're like, he's not the guy that did the search, so why should he be able to testify for it? But I do think he should be able to say or reference, hey, this is what was found. This is what was found and where it was found at, and who found it was this person. I think he should speak to that. I don't think it matters if he was the one that actually found it, but it's a great and smart move and maneuver to make him look not credible. It's like, well, how would you know if you wasn't there? And then when they ask some specific question that he don't know the answer to, it's like, oh, the defense is eating. But at the same time, they're not arguing the stuff that was found. You see what I mean? They're arguing about, oh, do you know if it was there? Or how do you know it was over there on the right? Or how do you know it was zipped up in a bag? That's what they're doing. But the funny part about all that is the prosecution is like, baby, that's irrelevant. Now, as if I was a jury member, a lot of the tactics the defense is using would not work on me. I'm a black and white type of person. All that gray area they try to put in there, I don't be seeing it. I put it like this. Did he break the law or did he not? When I hear the facts, he broke the law. I mean it like that. I don't know what else we're talking about here. But some jury members, they can get muddied. They can get lost in the muddy waters of the nuance or the maybe, I don't know, and they get doubtful. I'm not that doubtful. I'm very more direct. I'm very black and white, very concrete. It is what it is or it's not. And that's just it. I'm not going to sit up here and be like, well, maybe it's this and maybe that's the situation and maybe you'll do that's not how this works. The law doesn't work that way in my eyes. I feel like you do or you don't. I feel like you did it or you didn't do it. And in this case, Diddy did it. Diddy did it. And that's just it. And I don't want to be on the prosecution side, but the facts are the facts. When I read that indictment, the facts were the facts. It is what it is. I mean, I'm not going to argue with the facts. The facts is he did the crimes and he should suffer for them. So, of course, they brought up a staff member after that and basically asked the staff questions about, basically his dealings with Diddy, how he was communicating with Cassie during situations. They had messages they found with D-Rock, who I keep wondering, is D-Rock and KK ever going to be brought up into this trial? They've been brought up by name, but are they going to testify at all? Are they even going to testify for the defense? Because they've been brought up so much in this trial that they should either be conspirators or witnesses. They are way more hands-on than anybody else on the staff, if you ask me. It's always in every testimony, KK did this, KK said this, KK approved this, KK knew of this. And then they always got D-Rock knew of this, D-Rock was there, D-Rock. And it's like, when are we going to see them? Because we keep hearing about them, and I haven't seen neither one yet. And I want to hear them answer these questions. I want to see them get grilled. That's what I want to see. I want to see how the defense is going to spin it when they're on the stand. The people that were closest to him, like, what is going on? How did they maneuver out of this? Why weren't they subpoenaed? I have so many questions. And I do want to, I've been looking into other lawyers trying to see what would be the reasons why they would not be testifying. Some people feel like maybe they have their own case or their own trial, so they don't want to mess up this trial by adding in their information. Maybe some people think that after the fact we're going to find their co-conspirators. I don't know. I guess we won't really know until the prosecution rests their case, which they did say and mention. They did mention that most likely they will be resting their case next week, maybe early as Wednesday, which I'm really grateful for, because not that this trial hasn't been entertaining per se. It's been very interesting, very knowledgeable. I've learned a lot, but I'm ready to see how they're going to conclude their case, because Jane Doe did such a number on, in my opinion, I don't think she was much of a W. I don't think she was much of a win. I think it does show some details as far as how he used money to control women, and he, sex was a way to win him over. But it was so much going on in her testimony that I think she just, I don't know, she was an L to me. So I feel like I'm ready to see how they're gonna close this out, because they're not ending with Jane Doe. They've already moved on to do 2 different witnesses. So, like, who else is going to hit the stand? Who else are they going to bring out to speak towards this whole scenario, to speak towards what's going on? I have questions, and I want to know how they're going to close this out. I want to know where they're going to go with it, what they're going to say, what's their picture they're painting, because I really want them to make a full circle moment. I know they basically laid the details out a little bit sporadically as far as the RICO charges, and I can see it clear as day, but I'm just sure the jury doesn't see it. And speaking of the jury, I almost forgot this. There's some few things I almost forgot. With the jury, there's a juror member they keep trying to dismiss, child. And the defense is trying to say, oh, it's because he's black. Now, I don't know, but there's something suspicious about the defense trying to keep that jury member in there. And the prosecution is just like, they aren't as credible because a lot of things they lied about. Apparently, they lied about where they lived, saying that they lived in New Jersey, but I guess saying also that they live in the Bronx. And honestly, to me, when I hear that, I'm like, okay, well, it's not that big of a deep detail, because, when it comes to New York people, I'm not from New York, but I know a lot of the boroughs in New Jersey is just almost looked at as another part of New York. So I can see that misconception, but he should have been forthright with the information. He should have been honest and open and transparent about where he actually lives and where he resides. I'm not sure why he was not, but maybe he was confused. But the fact that he wants to be a part of this trial so bad that he will say anything does make it look suspicious. And the fact that the defense is trying to keep him on there so strongly, because they shouldn't want him on there either. But I guess they want to keep him on there in case something is wrong with him, and they can turn around and say, we need to appeal this because that jury member lied. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things. And I thought he was going to be dismissed because they kept bringing it up all week about this jury member that they wanted to talk about. They wanted to see it, figure out. And I kept thinking he was going to be dismissed. And yet we're still here, and it's the weekend, and we're waiting until Monday to find out what's going to happen with him. Still don't know. Now, the other funny thing that happened over the week, Mr. Kanye West tried to attend the court on Thursday and Friday. And apparently he showed up on Friday for a little bit, for about 10 minutes before he left. He showed up Thursday and apparently was kicked out. And it delayed the court sessions, or it delayed the examination and trial, or whatever the case may be. It delayed it on Thursday. He came back on Friday, and stay in the overflow room because he wasn't able to make it into the courtroom because it was too many people. And he basically stayed in there and basically, stayed for about 10 minutes before he left. I guess what I'm suspecting is that he realized a certain witness wasn't on the stand anymore and decided to leave. You know how he's a certain rap icon with a certain wife? And of course, that rap icon and wife would want to support their friend Diddy because they've supported them so many times in the past. Catch that. Clock that. Yeah, it's just, the whole trial has been interesting. And seeing Kanye West take his crazy Gemini ass up there, because he make us Geminis look bad every fucking day. When he take his ass up there, basically like he wants to figure out, like he's interested in the actual case, is baffling to me. I'm pretty sure he's interested, but not for the reasons we all think he's interested, because it's so interesting that you just pop up randomly when Jane Doe is speaking about her own testimonies that you decide this is the week you want to show yourself present as in support. Okay, Mr. West, we see how you're moving. We see what you're doing. We watching you. Just like the prosecution is tired of seeing Diddy sit up there nodding and thumbs up and everybody in the courtroom and always speaking and trying to make some type of interaction or engagement with someone in there. I want him to get it together. And if he don't get it together, I need the judge to do something about it, because I don't think he should be able to do that. If I was in the courtroom and I'm defending myself and I'm scared my life going to be taken away from me, I'm going to be in there barely blinking. I'm going to stand up there and I'm going to look straight and I'm not going to smile and look around. But I guess it makes them look more personable. But boy, stop interacting with people and make it look like you're trying to say something. You're trying to charm them, or you're trying to persuade them in some kind of way, or you're giving the approval of what the defense. Y'all meet before and after. Y'all don't have to do all that in the courtroom. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to do all that. It's all for show, and I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like when people do things for show. All that performative shit, I don't like it, especially in the courtroom. Unless you are some razzle-dazzle lawyer, you need to remain seated, quiet, and professional. Now, that's how I see it. But some people may see it differently. They may see differently. Honestly, truly, this trial has taken a toll on me. As you can see, I started with more bonus episodes and slowly dwindled down because some testimonies be dragging and I work a 9 to 5. So listen, when I'm at the end of my day, I watch the trial and I read the trial, but I don't always want to speak about the trial because it ain't always an update. Like, if I would really touch on an update every single day, I wouldn't have enough things to talk about. I wouldn't. So I have to wait so I can stretch it out and say as much as I can. When I feel like there's enough information given in the testimonies or in just the evidence that's been presented, or if there's been anything developing incidents like, Kanye West popping up, or 50 Cent chiming in every 5 minutes, or a bomb being dropped during the week. Those things are rather interesting and intriguing, and they pinpoint the narrative that's being spent right now. So whenever the prosecution is speaking, I want to hone in on what they're preaching and what they're saying. And then whenever the defense is speaking, I want to hone in on what they're saying. But if they're not really making any changes or saying anything new or adding anything relevant that are new or something that I did not already speak on, then I'm actually excited to see what the defense is going to say now that prosecution is about to wrap up. I want to see where they go with this. What's their actual narrative they're going to paint? Because we've already kind of seen it sprinkled throughout, basically saying that some of these women were gold diggers. They weren't victim of sexual trafficking or coercion. They're going to touch on that. They're going to try to say this isn't a RICO case. This is a domestic violence case. I want to see how they're going to put it into a summary form. I want to see who they bring on the stand. They're going to have their own witnesses. Who's it going to be? Who are they going to call to testify? That's when it's going to really be interesting, because I want to see what they're going to say. They've been spinning it all this time. So let's see how they continue to spin it. Let's see where they really take this narrative and the storyline they're trying to paint to defend their Diddy. Because if I don't hear them arguing against any of these facts and evidence of all these crimes he did commit, I'm going to be looking at them like, so y'all only can focus on discrediting people? Y'all actually don't have nothing to argue these facts? We not going to argue the drug trafficking at all? The prostitution? Y'all going to y'all gonna deny that that's happening? Like, I want to see how they're gonna touch on that, because they have to speak on that. Because in my opinion, they have to speak on that. They're going to have to touch on that. Eventually, they're going to have to actually address the crimes that he's committed. Otherwise, y'all are only focusing on the tidbits and the small little details. And I don't feel like at that point, y'all not doing a good job. Now, right now, with the cross-examination and responding back to what the prosecution has been saying, I think they've been doing a good job. But after prosecution rests their case, I want to see what they're doing. Let's see how the prosecution fights back. So, yeah. It's almost to the end of the road, and once we are there, I'll be glad to finally hear the verdict so we can see what's going to happen, because this trial has been draining and time consuming, but I am here and I'm ready. And you have been listening to the Live with Robbie coverage of U.S. versus Combs on the Linkin with Robbie podcast. Stay tuned for more.